lot of nuts!
Slop, 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 slop. Welcome back, Slop-yenas, to SumitoMedia, where we slop our slop where the slop don't slop. And that's slop indeed. Merriam-Webster. Yet another one of these companies that publishes big books with a lot of words in them, and I'm not talking about Game of Thrones. I don't think that's what the book series is called, actually. Another dictionary company has decided to jump on the trend of naming meme-ass words as their word of the year in an effort to get people to care about the dictionary. Now, I personally have never looked up the definition of anything, but what I can tell you is if you tell me the word of the year is slop, something I've already made a 35-minute video dissecting, I'm gonna be slightly intrigued. Could I have gone back and re-recorded that to say 20 minutes, the actual length of the video that I made, rather than the random 35 minutes I plucked out of my head, misremembering a video that I made a year ago? Yeah, I probably could have. But the bar is so low here on YouTube, with the incredible influx of artificially generated slop that's filling most of our timelines. You guys should be happy I'm even on camera at this point. Merriam-Webster's human editors have chosen slop as the 2025 word of the year. They have to specify that the people making this are humans, because if robots voted for a word that's derogatory against artificial intelligence, I feel like the entire society would collapse and Sam Altman might need to take off his cock ring. We define slop as quote-unquote digital content of low quality that is produced usually in quantity by means of artificial intelligence. All that stuff dumped on our screens, captured in just 4 letters. The English language came through again. Now, this is actually surprisingly not yet another video where I feel like I need to bitch about how AI is ruining our lives in more than a couple different facets. No, it actually is about the fact that the word slop has worked its way so deeply into our lexicon that I'm actually seeing it pop up in internet culture and meme culture in a way that it sort of encompasses low quality repetitive iterations of even memes and media. Truly, it's not just, hey, let's come up with something close enough related to AI so that we don't need to make AI the word of the year. No, I feel like the word slop has actually really come into its own in internet culture. Before we get into more slop, let me quickly secure my Christmas bonus by telling you guys about today's video sponsor, Into the AM. Christmas is coming up, which means it officially marks the better part of 2 full years that I've been sponsored by Into the AM, which means you can take a look at the last 200 or so videos that I've made on this channel and see just how much of their stuff I've been wearing. And with Christmas and wintertime coming up, you need to get cozy. Why don't you guys pick up some of their selections that they have? A perfect combination of gifts that you can buy, from hoodies to jackets, all marked under like 40 or 50 bucks if you want your own packages and what have you. My advice, get this hoodie. This is like the best color I've ever seen in my life. I don't know why it looks so good on camera. I don't know why it peaks the perfect amount of my shirt underneath. I feel like it complements my skin. There's magic in some of the stuff these guys are making. If you're cold, they got a whole winter selection. If you're stupid and you still haven't done your Christmas shopping, best time to secure your gifts right now. You get an extra 10% off, including the Christmas promotions they're running right now, by using my link in the description. You're supporting the channel at the same time. I suggest you do it. Pencil slop. Pencil slop. Now listen, slop on its own is like, you know, you get it, it's low effort, blah, 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 whatever. But just adding the word slop to the end of words, AI slop, quality slop, whatever. Pencil slop, according to knowyourmeme.com, is a slop slang variant and rage bait term used to insult artists who do not use AI for their artwork. This is somebody who said, oh, AI is getting made fun of for being considered slop. Oh, so you artists think that you make real art? Well, your shit is just pencil slop. You guys are overvaluing real art that doesn't use AI just because it's pencil slop. It is the direct opposite of how slop evolved to become an insult for AI. That's the stupidest thing I have ever heard. But is that not kind of fascinating. I hate AI art. Translating, quote, I support cutting down millions of trees in order to make pencil slop. What defense is AI not cutting down trees to make pencils? Are you fucking stupid? RAM costs a mortgage because of this shit. KnowYourMeme.com seems to think the first use of the term pencil slop is from this tweet using AI to generate this hand-drawn image of Hayao Miyazaki. I don't know why this guy wrote Hayao Miyazaki for some reason. Must be autocorrect. But Hayao Miyazaki throwing a pencil at you. This was, I imagine, in response to the news that an animation studio in Japan was forcing new artists to draw in front of them as part of their application process in order to prove that they're not using AI in order to enhance their artwork submissions as their applications or what have you. So this is, you know, Hayao Miyazaki's get good throwing a pencil at you. And then it gets redone in AI and doesn't look fucking anything like him, if I'm being honest. But first use of pencil slop, weird situation, right? Weird situation to be like, hey, the most respected animation company and individual in history is against AI, therefore I'm gonna make an AI rendition of it. This is rage slop, in my opinion, because it's rage bait, but it's low quality, not good rage bait. It's rage slop. You see how great this word is? The first use I saw of using slop as a prefix, as an insult before AI usage and AI slop, was this tweet talking about friend slop to refer to these multiplayer games that were starting to go viral. That's not actually true. The first iteration I saw of slop being used as a suffix was at the end of this word in order to refer to overly gay, yaoi-esque memes and stories and what have you, but I can't even say this one out loud, so I don't know how I'm gonna do a whole section on it. The first one I can actually talk about is this tweet talking about friend slop. From this tweet by Bloody Mary, who says, I don't know how else to describe it, but I call this genre of game friend slop. Its sole purpose of existence is friend farming. And this is referring to games like Lethal Company, Repo. I would even argue that some people have referred to some friend slop games as friends-like, such as, I don't know, like Among Us and things like that, where it's not so much that it's a multiplayer game that you play with your friends, but rather the entirety of the game is that you are playing with your friends. If you had robot companions with you playing a game like Lethal Company, you wouldn't have the comedy in the lack of coordination due to you having to only use in-game communication. It is only by playing with other humans that the game becomes interesting and fun. And this person seems to feel like some of these games, rather than just being a fun multiplayer experience, are rather friend slop, where the entire game exists simply as a medium in order to enhance an experience that is otherwise really just like a funny Discord conversation with 4 to 8 other people at the same time. And I would argue they've kind of got a point here. I cannot believe the depths to which this has been conversed upon on Twitter, but I found somebody who made a diagram explaining the difference between friend slop and a friend like, which at which point is this just a game with multiplayer in it? But this person argues that friend slop is a video game that you play with your friends with no hard winning conditions. Winning, quote unquote, just means you get to play longer. The people you play with are the main focus. Gameplay is just the medium, as I sort of touched on just before this. Core gameplay often lends itself to moments that are either hype or scary, like proximity chat or jump scares, such as content warning, Lethal Company, Repo. I've never played Supermarket Together, web fishing I've seen some memes about. Alternatively, a friends like is something that does have hard win conditions, shares strong similarities to friend slop. However, the gameplay mechanics can be more of a primary focus to having fun. My argument is that if you take your friends and you replace them with AI robots, is the game still something you can sort of play? For instance, if you played Among Us with a bunch of bots it would still be Among Us. You'd still have to try to figure out who did the thing. There's still stuff going on. I guess maybe Peak and Jackbox Games might be a bad example with robot answers, but like there is a game that exists. Alternatively, if you were playing Lethal Company with a bunch of bots that can't talk to you, what are you even doing? You know what I mean? So here's the thing. The phrase friend slop did not come as a result of just adding the word slop to the end of something. It was somebody trying to vent frustration at the influx of games trying to recreate the success, the virality of Lethal Company by effectively just making a game that on its own would be kind of nothing, but the fact that you can play it with your friends turns it into something. I don't know what you guys are thinking of, whether it be Peak or RV There Yet or whatever the current example is. The image that I find is this guy who my co-op Sisyphus game about rolling a boulder with your friends launches in only 2 days. If I told you I made a video game about rolling an endless boulder up a hill in order to recreate the story of Sisyphus, you'd be like, why in God's name would I play a game with no direction? But hey, if I told you it's got Discord integration and you can do it with 6 of your friends and gaslight each other into saying you're the reason that the boulder fell back down, oh, guess we're taking another turn. You have now made friend slop. My absolute favorite example of people making fun of genres of video games by just adding the word slop to the end of them is using the phrase roll slop in order to describe a Souls-like game. It is the funniest shit in the world to me. If you guys aren't familiar, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, Sekiro, all of these games are sort of very highly respected, right? As gameplay mechanics, as game design, people take a look at the increasing difficulty, the repetitive, having to learn enemy move types and all this in Souls-like games and Souls-born games as peak gameplay, as peak game design. If you have to memorize the boss patterns of every attack in order to even be able to remotely beat them the way that Souls-like games have you do, that seems to be what the most elite hardcore gamer does. The funny thing is that at the end of the day, once you get incredibly good at recognizing these boss patterns, it turns into a non-stop flurry of just knowing when to dodge, duck, dive, dodge, ball, duck, roll out of the enemy attacks, and the game becomes basically null at that point. You watch an expert play Dark Souls, all they're really doing is dodging out of the way of the stuff that they know is going to kill them and attacking at the right points. Much harder done than said, obviously, but the fact that you can take that entire elitism that comes along with Souls-like games and just going, bro, this is just roll slop, to describe Sekiro, Elden Ring, Dark Souls, and Bloodborne is ironically top tier rage bait. This particular image that I'm showing you is comparing it to gacha games, which are like the complete opposite end of the spectrum, where there's basically very little to no real enticing, difficult gameplay mechanics to learn, and rather it's just swiping your credit card in order to get prettier outfits and or characters for your game. So like there's a contrast being driven here, but there's also a little bit of a point being made, right? Now listen, just describing a Soulsborne game as roll slop doesn't exactly do justice to the amount of dedication it takes to learning every enemy type in order to be able to just roll your way through the entire game, right? When you're starting out, very little is going to help you in terms of equipment and leveling up and what have you when you're playing something like Elden Ring, Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, whatever. Those games challenge you in order to learn the game and enemies so that you can beat them proficiently and repetitively. You have to actually learn to play the game. You cannot just over-level yourself to the point where you can one-shot things, to my understanding, and that's why people respect them. However, once you learn exactly how to block, roll, and parry your way away from the damage and difficult enemies, you end up with situations like this, where this individual beat the hardest final boss of Elden Ring using a dance pad as a controller, because once you learn how to roll the difficult damage, the enemies can't hit you. This is just quality slop. You only like it because it's good. Now, no, shut up. Listen, and on cooking a little bit here. This isn't as stupid as it sounds, I think. Is quality slop real? Is quality slop real? Listen, okay? Here's the way I see it. Have you ever asked somebody what their favorite movie is, and their answer has been something to the tune of, I don't know, Avatar, Endgame, Shawshank Redemption? You know what I mean? Maybe that is your favorite movie, or maybe you want to give an answer that you don't need to defend. No, if somebody says, I can't believe the Avengers movie is your favorite movie, Avatar is your favorite movie, it's a little bit too easy to be like, listen, they grossed $1 trillion billion dollars. You objectively cannot criticize the fact that I like this thing because it's objectively good. Some things were pent up to be good in order to, you know, not have any criticism taken towards it. They're objective things. I'm allowed to think that you're stupid for thinking that your favorite movie is Avatar. That's quality slop, right? I would argue, you already know what I'm gonna say, right? You already know what I'm gonna say. I would argue that Mr. Beast is quality slop. That people only want to say Mr. Beast is their favorite YouTuber because there's too many defenses on his quality. He spends this much money, his videos have this much money given away, they build these giant things, blah blah blah, he gives money to charity, therefore it cannot be criticized. No, it can be, in the most rage bait inducing way possible. Mr. Beast is quality slop. Is it just that you can add slop to the end of any word and then turn it into a negative, right? Can you call something meme slop simply because it's a meme that's bad or you don't like it? Music slop because you don't enjoy this artist's latest album or whatever, right? It's not quite that simple. When we take a look at the original definition of slop in reference to artificially generated low effort content, it is a lack of sole purpose and personally driving direction that turns it into slop. If the sole purpose of this thing is simply to make it exist in as much iterations as possible, just to get it out onto the internet so that it's there in order to soak up likes, attention, media, what have you, without any real purpose, that's what makes it slop. If somebody used AI in order to do something that was solid, like the way that they use it in medicine to be able to look over MRI scans and notice tumors and stuff that human eyes and modern computers can't without AI, that doesn't just make it slop. However, if somebody's using AI just to generate naked photos of Taylor Swift because they're too lazy to Photoshop a pair of tits onto her, that's slop, right? And then when we take a look at that in every other situation, does a game become friend slop just because it's designed to be multiplayer and have fun with your friends? No, but if the sole purpose of it is to exist simply to take advantage of the fact that that seems to be the trending thing going on, with as much minimal game design as possible just to tie everything together, friend slop, row slop, quality slop. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a little bit more nuance going on here. Arguably, I feel like Merriam-Webster did a half-decent job with picking slop as their word of the year. This thing's got a little more, it's got a little more meat to chew on. I don't know the words here. I'm running out of word slop to use for this. Let me know your favorite examples down in the comments, and if you guys want to see more of my video slop, remember to hit the slopscribe button right below the like slop button. This is a like slop video, and remember to check out Into the AM if you want to pick up some sponsored slop using my affiliate slop down in the description slop. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Sloppies?